You know, as a university president, when you think about great universities, what they do, they bring the best ideas from around the world to make a difference in their communities. And of course, take the best ideas from their communities to make a difference in the world. And that's very much what I see the MacEachen Institute doing. And I have to say, I think you'll agree with me, when you think of this panel that represented, frankly, a new generation of scholars and students, I think we're in very good hands. Don't you agree? So we are very proud to host the MacEachen Institute for Public Policy and Governance. And as I said, I think that panel discussion is an example of what we can achieve, new ways of imagining new ideas, as Professor Brooks said, and making a difference in our community. I think it's only appropriate when we launch this event to launch this new institute is to give you a little bit of background on its namesake, Alan J. MacEachen. So it's my pleasure to do that for you. Mr. MacEachen has been variously described as a great thinker and an outstanding Canadian, all titles that are richly deserved. The Honourable Alan J. MacEachen dedicated his life to serving the Canadian people, both as an educator and a respected parliamentarian. He was born into the rural community of Inverness on Cape Breton Island in 1921. And he evolved from those humble beginnings to become one of Canada's greatest parliamentarians and politicians. He was the son of a coal miner and a child during the Great Depression. And his life and his career were shaped by a powerful commitment to self-betterment through hard work and through giving back to his community. And what an impact he has made. First elected to office in 1953 under the Liberal government of Louis St. Laurent, Mr. MacEachen was a pivotal force in designing Canada's social programs that we see as being the very fabric of our country. As Minister of Labour, he was instrumental in reforming the Labour Code and in establishing a new standard for the minimum wage. He was the architect of the government's social agenda of the 1960s through the Health Resources Fund, through the Canada Assistance Plan, and the Old Age Security Act, all of which were introduced or were amended during his term as Minister of National Health and Welfare. Most notably, perhaps, one of his greatest achievements, he piloted Medicare through the contentious debates in the House, where it was almost derailed until he finally brought it home, getting the Medical Care Act passed in 1966. Mr. MacEachen's extensive experience and success working with the Canadian political system and within that system have contributed to a nationwide commitment and belief in our democratic process that we can build a better nation together. Those who know Alan J. personally speak of his integrity, his dedication to his constituents, and his exceptional contributions to the political and social life of Canada. I know that in the audience today, we have many of his friends and colleagues, and I'm sure they'll agree with that assessment. Now, although today is about Alan J., it's also my pleasure to introduce to you another very great Canadian, the Right Honourable Prime Minister Jean Chrétien. Prime Minister Chrétien, it's so great to see you again, to see you here on the Dell campus. He has agreed to join us to share some of his thoughts on Alan J. MacEachen's legacy and on the Institute, on our goals and aspirations here. Before I ask you to come up, Mr. Chrétien, I'd just like to say a few words. Of course, you are a man who needs little introduction. But let me quote the Canadian Encyclopedia, who described Prime Minister Chrétien as perhaps the most successful politician on the federal scene in the last 60 years. Now, Mr. Chrétien left the office of Prime Minister of Canada on December 12, 2003, after having served 3 consecutive terms with the majority government. Very considerable accomplishment. He was elected member of the House of Commons in 1963, and he also served in cabinet with Alan J. MacEachen for over a decade. So knows him well and will be able to speak well about him. Now, again, just a little bit about Mr. Chrétien's background during his time in cabinet. Prime Minister Chrétien served as Deputy Prime Minister as Minister of Finance, as Minister of Industry, Trade and Commerce, Minister of National Revenue, Minister of Indian Affairs and Northern Development, President of the Treasury Board, I have to pause and take a breath here, Minister of Justice and Attorney General, Minister of Energy, Mines and Resources, Minister responsible for Francophone Affairs, Secretary of State for External Affairs, and Minister in charge of Social Development. An impressive record. In 2007, he was recognized by being appointed Companion of the Order of Canada. In 2009, he was awarded the Order of Merit by Her Majesty Elizabeth II. Mr. Chrétien, again, it is such an honor to have you with us today. Mr. Chrétien has agreed to serve as the inaugural Honorary Distinguished MacEachen Scholar, and so I have the honor of presenting him with a certificate. Prime Minister Chrétien, if I could ask you to come forward.